was introduced by the distinguished member for Kikuyu, the leader of the majority party. It went through first reading and then taken through public participation, Your Excellency, by the Departmental Committee on Finance, chaired by the member for Molo, who is today represented by the Honorable Umu Kasim, distinguished member for Mandera County today. Your Excellency, this bill proposes to provide a legal framework for the establishment of the Sovereign Wealth Fund and also provide institutional framework for the proper and efficient management of that fund by distinguished professionals who are competent enough to take care of the fund. With that in mind, the fund establishes three components of itself. That is, first, the stabilization fund, which is supposed to assist the national government to cushion the people of Kenya from any shocks that may be associated with macroeconomic instability globally, including pandemics and other natural phenomena and conflict like that, the one that was witnessed, Your Excellency, in the Middle East. The second component is a strategic infrastructure investment fund for purposes of pooling resources with the private sector to construct our infrastructure. And the third component, and the most exciting, Your Excellency, is a future generations fund. This bill provides, Your Excellency, that the Future Generations Fund will have a component of not less than 30% of the funds. It has gotten the highest amount of protection compared to the other three components, including the fact that you cannot borrow against it, you cannot do collateral against it, and there are certain prohibitions of investment against it, so that those funds are secured for future generations, as indeed required, Your Excellency, under Article 201C of the Constitution, Your Excellency. This bill provides that the fund will be managed by a board, the chairman appointed by the President, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, Cabinet Secretary for Mining, Cabinet Secretary for Petroleum, and 4 other persons who will be competitively recruited, Your Excellency, depending on their competencies, to sit in that board. The board provides certain protections to the fund, including the investment, establishment of investment manager. It establishes where funds can be invested and where funds should not be invested, Your Excellency. It prohibits the investment of those funds from things like private equity, speculative derivatives, and other commercial investments which are high risk. The idea is to protect the fund from the risk appetite of the board and also ensure the fund is well protected, Your Excellency. It also requires that the fund shall be managed in accordance with the Public Finance Management Act, together with other provisions contained in the Act, Your Excellency. The bill has 4 schedules. One of the schedules provides for how the investments can be made, how drawings can be made, the affairs of management, the management of the affairs of the board, and many more. 61 clauses, Your Excellency, and 4 schedules. Permit me, Your Excellency, to end my commission for the day there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Your Excellency, in observance of the constitutional requirement that instruments issued by the head of state be executed under the hand and seal of the President, I now invite Your Excellency, accompanied by the pupils, to affix the seal of the Republic to the bills, thereby perfecting their enactment into law. With Your Excellency's assent, the Sovereign Wealth Fund Bill now becomes law and is entered into the body of the laws of the Republic of Kenya. Through this enactment, the nation's journey towards first world status is firmly placed on course. So, Your Excellency, you may present a signed copy of the Act to His Excellency Deputy President and the Attorney General for publication, and the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury for implementation. And thereafter, you may present to the Speaker and all the Leader of Majority and all other members of Parliament present. So may we all arise so that we can celebrate the new act. The fanfare again. Excellency, you may resume your seat.
With your permission, Your Excellency, we are now going to progress to a panel discussion. But before that, as we get the stage ready, allow me to invite the State House Choir to give us a short interlude of music as we prepare the stage for the panel discussion. State House Choir, over to you.
Vita in te
Why don't we appreciate the State House Choir with a clap? Thank you very much. With a wonderful song right there, Naipenda Kenya. Your Excellency, with your permission, allow me now to transition to the panel discussion, and at this point to invite the moderator or the discussant, which is Mr. Wallace Kantai, Head of Communication at Central Bank of Kenya, to take his seat. We can give him a clap as he's coming. Karibu sana, Wallace. Let me also invite Mr. Tom Gitogo, Group MD and CEO Britam, to also take his seat. Mr. Nicholas Indondeka, Chair Fund Managers, to also take his seat. Mr. Paul Russo, Group CEO, KCB, Mr. Paul Russo. Dr. James Mwangi, CEO, Equity Bank of Kenya PLC. A clap for him as well as they're coming. Then the last panel person is Honorable FCPA John Badi, the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, to take their seats. Most welcome. You may take your seats, and I'll now hand over to Mr. Wallace Kantai, who is going to be the discussant or the moderator for this panel. Welcome.
As we wait for our last participant on the panel, Your Excellency, the President, Your Excellency, Deputy President, fellow guests, and I dare say it's a room full of friends. Hamjambo. I will not do what I used to do, which is commentate on this, but I think, permit me to say, it's a very exciting day. And I think primarily, not so much with the top people that we have in front of us, but the guests, Your Excellency, who you had just a few minutes ago. I think we haven't seen that in too many places, and I think recognition that this is on their behalf. We are custodians of all these resources on behalf of those generations. So gentlemen, and my apologies for gentlemen only on my panel, I promise to do better next time. We want to begin this conversation and want to keep it moving fairly quickly. And I think the best person to begin with is the Honorable Cabinet Secretary. We have said many times that we are on the road to Singapore. But I suspect you want to add to that that you're now on the road to Norway in terms of the fund. Why the fund? What does it do that is so special for us? Buenos Dias.
Thank you very much. First, let me state that this government set on transformation journey, and there cannot be any transformation without reforms. And therefore, we have embarked on a series of reforms, one of which is to pay attention to the principles of our Constitution. And when you look at the principles of our Constitution, one of the things that stand out very, very clearly is what we call intergenerational equity. And you cannot speak to intergenerational equity without thinking about the current or the resources that we have and how much would be used by the current generation and how much would be designated for future generation. We have been exploiting the minerals that we have, the petroleum products that may be there, without any regard to the future generation. I'll give you an example that we have had minerals in Kwale, but going forward, and the future generation will be asking, where is that mineral that we hear was in Kwale? We would not have an answer. This act, it is now not a bill, is addressing that anomaly by creating a fund, which we call the Sovereign Wealth Fund, in the model of Norway. I know there is also another model of the UK, but ours is borrowing largely to the model of Norway, where now we are creating three funds. The first one is the Stabilization Fund, and the second one is the Strategic Infrastructure Fund. But the most important one, which has been ring-fenced and protected through the Act, and where we have designated 30% of all the revenue that would be generated from minerals and petroleum proceeds to go into, and that is the intergenerational or the Future Generation Fund, which is for the intergenerational equity. So that is what is distinct. And this government will go on record in history as that government that thought about the future of generation of this country.
Thank you, Bonasias. Norway is in the quarterfinals, by the way, of the World Cup. We hope that that's an additional promise you're making to us. Bonakili, you've been in charge of public funds, in a manner of speaking, for a very long while. How exciting is this moment for you, and what does it mean going forward?
Thank you very much. On behalf of our pension industry, I would like to say we are very excited because we normally deal with intergenerational wealth, actually, because we deal with pensions for the current generation, we deal with the future generations, and as a trust. For me, it's exciting because I believe that we should actually consider other sources of funding this sovereign wealth fund beyond the natural resources. I believe any Kenyan of goodwill should be allowed to donate their wealth to the sovereign wealth fund. So I want to suggest that the House of Parliament should consider an amendment to enable any Kenyan or even any foreigner who loves Kenya of goodwill to donate into this fund. I would be one of the first ones to put some of my wealth in my will to the sovereign wealth fund. Secondly, there are many other sources like unclaimed financial assets. We have other sources also which are obviously we need to consider that these resources are attached to go to the sovereign wealth fund. And as a result, we shall build a fund very fast. Also, the common people, the citizens should be allowed to put in whatever shilling they should be able to put in. You remember, and I know our head of state is a Christian, that when Christ came to recognize the best donor or the best person who gave, it was an old lady who gave the only money she had into the kitty. I would suggest that the common wananchi are allowed to give even a shilling into this fund. And as a result of that, that money should be then invested. And we are appealing to our capital markets through the Nairobi Stock Exchange to play their role in enabling us to grow this exponentially. So we are excited. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. And that is an interesting proposal because one of the people who revolutionized finance from the mass direction is yourself, Bona James Mwangi, starting 30 or so years ago, and we can see where it's led to now in terms of what I might call financial inclusion, but more particularly people taking part in the development of their own country. Is this another revolutionary moment similar to that one that you led all those years ago?
Thank you very much. I think this is beyond a revolutionary movement because it's the collective will of the Kenyan people signaling their commitment to invest into the future. So when a people decides to build the future themselves, they liberate themselves from dependence. And I see this as a bold step, saying that we are changing the way we have done things before. The second one, it speaks broadly about the maturity of the Kenyan people. When people think beyond themselves and think about future generations, it then means perpetuation of a legacy of a nation. But also, when you create an institution with the protocols, like the one enshrined in this institution, you protect that wealth specifically. And that is what I see as very bold steps that are very, very transformative. But I think for me, what touched me most was to see a Wings to Fly scholar. And he greeted me and said, "You gave me a scholarship. I can now see investment for the job that I will take after education." So you can see people can relate that it's not just present, but the future is secured. And that to me is quite telling. But let me talk about Norwegian sovereign wealth fund. That is maybe the best example, and you can compare it with the British sovereign wealth fund. They were started at the same time for the same purpose, but you can see Norway now has 2.2 trillion US dollars in the sovereign fund for a population of 5 million people. That is staggering. They have not only secured their children, they are now securing grandchildren. But what is unique about this, and I say it, I know it well, because 14% of the entire shareholding of Equity Bank is by the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. You could imagine, we Equity are limiting 14% of all the dividend we are paying to the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So the structure of investment, they can tap on the best investment in the world to facilitate the growth of their wealth. But we have borrowed this concept as equity. We all know equity 30 years ago, you have evoked 30 years ago. The smallest financial institution in Kenya, number 66 out of 66, but it's the discipline of thinking about the future that has created equity. The last time equity raised capital was 2007. 2007. But 20 years, we have funded by sharing today's prosperity to build the future. We only pay 30% of available for distribution as dividend and reinvest 70%. And I see this is what the country has started to do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bwana Ruto, you're also in the banking sector, but I'll approach it perhaps more directly in that regard, and where the banking sector is today and what it looks like going into the future. This is new, but it's also very big in terms of the resources that will be in it, and also some of the ambition behind it. How do you think the banking sector will interface with it and react to it?
Yeah, thank you, Wallace, and thank you, James, for pitching for the banking sector and the role that we need to play. I think just in the first instance, when you see the captains of industry that are present here for banking, tells you how important this is. I think we have more than 10, if I'm not wrong, of CEOs from banks that are present here. Wallace, I think I'll start by answering this question broadly. I think we've pitched the country in a number of instances from banking sector from a return on investment basis. And that has been significantly high. I think we've done extremely well. These two funds, and I'm lucky to sit in the council of the National Infrastructure Fund, these two funds specifically set two major requirements for us to take the next bold step for the country. One is governance and transparency. I think if there is an assurance that every single investor has been looking for, I think that answer has been provided in the way these funds have been structured. And that's extremely very important. And to take it also on a lighter note, in every single time that banks have attempted to de-risk investment and working with government, we've been going for letters of support. We've been running to say, give us some guarantee, something we can hold on to. I think these funds have been structured to be able to de-risk investment and how we work to bring to life significant infrastructure investments in the case of NIF. But on this particular fund, also starting to take a bet on the country. So let's just take, for example, Gulf Energy investing in taking over Talo and investing in Turkana, which KCB is supporting. I think you can see from a commercial investment, but today you see from a future and guaranteeing value for generations to come. You can get oil out of the ground, you can commercialize. We can all be happy in the current instance, but this fund ensures that future generations benefit out of that. And I think for banks, there lies the confidence, and how we should then be able to support that we are not just investing for today, but we are playing and putting our bet on the country for the future.
And since you still have the mic, Mr. Ruto, and taking advantage of the fact that lots of Kenyans may be watching this right now or later, what then is the difference between the two funds? Because they'll see within a very short space of time, we have two very big funds. We are making, rightfully so, a very big deal out of them. What then is the difference? Where would their attention lie depending on where they're coming from?
So I think, I'll try and be basic, Wallace, in this front. I think the National Infrastructure Fund comes in to answer the question. Because there are no easy choices from where we are as a country. Let me be, as chairman of KBA, right? You've borrowed to the limit. Yet we must deliver critical infrastructures. And I think sometimes we let government speak about it, private sector must speak about some of these things. We can complain about Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, we must put our neck online to make sure, for example, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is done. National Infrastructure Fund comes in to say, how do we deliver those significant national projects without loading additional debt and borrowing to government? And you know, that I think is and those infrastructure projects are here. They are not things we are going to think futuristic about. I've just given you an example of JKIA. Sovereign Wealth Fund then says, but I've got resources, whether the underground, the overground, whether you're talking about carbon, I think mining has been specified, petroleum has been specified. I think carbon should be in that category. I think Kelly just talked about well-wishers and people who want to deeply invest in this country. But it says, hello, we're not spending it for those of us that are here today. We have to have a structure to ensure that future generations are protected and that preservations happen in a well-governed, transparent manner. That's the difference of the two funds in the most basic way, because I think we're speaking to Kenyans, not financial experts that we are. And in both instances, and you can see, it is asking for expertise from all sectors and all fronts. It's not a government-led and it's not government-driven agenda, it is a collective. So if you see at the infrastructure fund and the chair of the council is here, because just of the structure, and probably is the only fund that starts with money already, the quality of applicants for the board has shocked many of us. Never have we seen that level of quality of applicants from private sector wanting to fund. I can assure it's because of the structure and how it has been defined. And I had the advantage of being a panelist. Now, if you look at this, the sovereign fund as well, it has 4 independent, competitively recruited individuals to represent. I think we have to pay attention to governance and transparency in both funds and how it's enshrined in the acts as a way of sustaining and building confidence. Because all of them will thrive on confidence, isn't it? Investors thrive on confidence. So I hope, over and above just clarifying the difference in the basic way, to stretch it a little bit and probably challenge us in the private sector, to start being advocates of certain things. I think James just mentioned about the Norwegian fund. We've got to try and then advocate for that to come to life.
Thank you very much, and I think that's a very useful set of clarifications you provided. Bonaidondeka, I noticed you and your colleagues walked in very excited until a few minutes ago. Then you were told, kill the word risk from your vocabulary. At least the people at my table got very unexcited. How should you look at this? Because investment and returns does have a certain element of understanding and taking on risk. But a sovereign wealth fund, wherever you look at it, including ours and what you've said here, is that risk element must be controlled, because we can't go off on adventures when the future generations are looking at us and they find that the coffers are empty. How do you then deal with that?
Thank you, Kantai. And indeed, you're right. Your Excellency, when you walked in here, I noticed most of my council members were salivating until the element of risk was put in the table. Allow me to say this, Your Excellency, because I am the chairman of the Fund Managers Association. There are quite a number of council members in the room, and I need to make sure when I go back, I'm still the chairman. So, Your Excellency, what they asked me to do today is to convey just one thing, to tell you thank you so much, because in the last 3 years, we are delivering double-digit returns to our clients. And this is the third year in a row that we are seeing numbers hitting almost close to 20% on our funds. And the likes of Dr. Kili are very happy, the likes of Koros, the likes of Dr. Yabe, and that movement that has been there back to back, as they say in football, Your Excellency, is because of that focus. So we must say thank you for that braveness, walking into the markets quite quickly as soon as you took over, and that excitement and that confidence was executed in the market. Your Excellency, they say, when I was a young man, one of my council members used to tell me, he was my boss then, now I'm his chairman, so life can change. He told me that fortune favors the brave, and Your Excellency, you have done that for us, and you have led from the top. So Kantai, you talk about how does it relate in terms of risk and in terms of protecting our markets. The capital markets, as you may know, Your Excellency, we thrive on what you call stability. Around the table there, we were discussing the fact that one of the strongest pushes for the last 3 years was the fact that there was stability. There's always movement in markets, but if the movements are predictable, if you're talking about the 2-3% movement, any investor can take that. And I can see my good friend Tadase is on your table. And he keeps on looking at me like someone who, like there you look at a child who never appreciates what he has. And the word they use there, out there, Your Excellency, is demographic capital. Demographic capital, dear ladies and gentlemen, is what we've done today, which means you're investing for the demographics, which is beyond us. And that alone, Kantai, it may not be coming to the fund managers to invest. It may be restricted, as Hassan mentioned, in terms of what is controlled. But that stability is what gives the investor confidence that you're seeing in Kenya. Even now, as we speak, Your Excellency, we were hosting the big banks of US last week, Royal Bank of Canada, Royal Canadian Bank, and the way they are talking about Kenya is beyond even fundamentals. It's about just positive excitement and what we call demographic capital. So while we may not be directly benefiting, it may be controlled, as the Parliament has put it, but for us, we know that stability is what we thrive on. Stability of markets, predictability of returns, when people can invest and be able to see what is coming in the next 3 years, for us, we are more than happy to continue residing in this economy and doing the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Banagitogo. I'll approach you from as an elder, because you've been in charge of rather large pools of capital. Now you feel sort of a bit safer because there's another large pool. What advice then would you give the CS, members of the board, and even arguably His Excellency the President, with regard to how to manage this? You've been managing through thick and thin, through difficult times and easier times, and now you've been put on the spot. How do you advise them?
So thank you. One disadvantage I have is that about 5 gentlemen have spoken before me, and each one of them has taken a point from what I wanted to say. But having said that, obviously, transparency and governance is very key for any big fund of this size. And that has been said and put very well by Ruto. The next thing is that the risk element, as His Excellency mentioned, is key. The approach of the investments need to take into account what the purpose of the fund is. There's three bits. Obviously, the stabilization, which is very good for our economy. It will attract investors, big and small, because of that stability. Economies go up and down. There's nothing we can do about that. But with stabilization, that helps us attract and continue investing into the future. So the right amount of risk, particularly reducing significantly the risk exposure to the part of the fund that is about future generations is key. But the fund will also not grow if it is not very well diversified. James talked about the Norway fund investing in Kenya. That gives it exposure to a double-digit growth in a growing economy. So I would expect that the fund would also look at investing elsewhere on the continent and elsewhere in the world, because it broadens the risk base. I think that is important, but obviously that needs to be done professionally, as Nick has said. And then obviously keeping in tandem with the trends. We have to invest, especially because things are changing, and we know the wider demographic is the youth. We cannot obviously also invest in what we have always invested in. I'm excited about the infrastructure, because in the insurance space, we are looking for long-term investments, and it's the same case with pensions. And this fund, in conjunction with the National Infrastructure Fund, will make a lot of the infrastructure investments that we so desperately need in this country bankable. And that will attract long-term funds from the private sector, including the insurance business. Yes.
Thank you. And perhaps I want to come back to you, CS, now getting into the details. In terms of the way the fund has been structured, we have spoken about protecting or ring fencing for future generations, but at the same time, James Mwangi spoke about Norway investing in equities, which are of necessity risky. How do we, or how have we structured, what choices did you make in terms of how the fund is structured to ensure that longevity, but at the same time, as Tom Gitogo says, that we actually get returns, because it's not enough to simply be safe. There's a reason why we have to grow.
Thank you very much. Allow me first to also add on to what Paul Ruto said regarding the slight difference between National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and talk about the sources of funding. In terms of National Infrastructure Fund, you'll notice that the Act clearly spells out that any divestiture in public-owned or state-owned enterprises will be invested in the National Infrastructure Fund. Yet the Sovereign Wealth Fund is now focusing more on revenue proceeds that are derived from our natural resources, more particularly the minerals and also the petroleum. So that is another distinction besides that. But let me now address the question that you have just put across to me regarding how the fund is structured and in terms of investment. And just to pick from what Toko has said, that actually the fund allows for not just investment locally in assets like the government papers, and also deepening the capital market, because that is one of the key responsibility of Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, is to make sure that our capital market is deepened and widened enough to promote and support investment. The Act also allows investment in convertible currencies. So long as what you are investing in, even if it is an international bond, it must be an investment in a bond that would allow for convertible currency. So there's that latitude for the board to look at the international market and see where there could be high value for the investment, but it must be in convertible currencies. But there is also provision of proper oversight. Investment policy must be approved all the way to the National Assembly, and there is enough oversight in that space. The Cabinet Secretary must, in consultation with the Cabinet, meaning that the Cabinet must approve, so it has enough guardrails to ensure that the funds are well protected. But looking at the three funds, you will also notice there's some slight differences there. That the second component, which is the strategic infrastructure component, allows you latitude, like the National Infrastructure Fund, to come in and again invest in our public infrastructure projects, which help in de-risking these assets for partnership or blending of capital with the private sector. And then when now you come to the intergenerational or the future generation component, they are the guardrails that the Act provides. And those are found in the schedules, the Schedule 1 and the Schedule 2 to the Act. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And perhaps as we, although there's so much to discuss, but perhaps we start bringing this to an end. There is a question in my head, Bonakili. So the current generations we had here, I was going to call them future, but they are here, so they're current generations. We'll be very excited. I suspect my children will ask me in the evening, what does this mean for them? But I also suspect my mother may call me and say, what is in it for me? She's a retiree, she has a pension, a state pension. This is very exciting for the future, but is there something now for her to be excited about, let alone me who's about to get into that space?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wallace. If you look at the purpose of establishment of the Norwegian Sovereign Fund, it's actually majorly targeted at pension, which is then for the citizens of that country. When I've had engagements with the Norwegian pension, that particular fund, and they say that they have saved enough that even if they don't get any new inflow into the fund can last more than 25 years plus. That's one. The second one is that the money is meant to take care of the whole, the people who have retired, either after having left employment or not. And I think it calls also for our country, and Your Excellency, I really want to ask you that now go to the next step, establish a universal social security fund for all citizens of the country, so that part of this funding, part of this money can actually be channeled to that universal fund, which is state funded. It is a promise in Article 44 and 43 of the Constitution. And I think it's the right time that we also launch that one. And that will make your grandmother and our mothers happy. At the same time, it will take over the burden from the current social protection programs, which is a cash transfer, which is basically not well funded. And for the future generations, now they will have some comfort in that there will be an element of assurance that the future is bright. We keep on promising them that the future is bright, but now they can see it and align with the fact of this particular asset being available for them. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll ask the four gentlemen before I get to the CS to wind up the same question. Where do you see this, let's call it 20 years, is a good time and a good window to look at it, starting with you, James Mwangi, for this fund? Where do you see us being?
What I really see is a transformed public sector, because what this fund does is that it creates disciplined planning. So we will now be a very structured, planned economy. The second aspect that I see is crowding in of the private sector. To me, this is a signaling effect. The bigger funds will come because these two funds de-risk, and they may just be investing 10%. and 90% will be private sector. So there will be massive crowding in. And like Singapore, which used Temasek, a FAD, there's a possibility that we could be able to reach 25% investment as a percentage of GDP. And if you look at all stories in the world that has ended up well, investment as a percentage of the GDP is about 25. Kenya is at 18. These two FADs, together with the crowding in of the private sector, would allow us to breach the 25% state, and then that can usher a predictable growth path for the economy to transition.
Thank you, Bwana Russo. Same question, 20 years.
Yeah, I think about the multiplier effect and technically what is going to come out of that. I personally see that level of confidence and, the ability that you don't have to explain Kenya as an investment destination with governance and the transparency that is provided for. And as James has said, look, funds will follow, as I said earlier on, ROI, but will follow governance and transparency. So significant investments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kantai. For me, I think 20 years down the line, I expect to see a very different country. And Your Excellency, we must congratulate you, because what this sovereign fund is doing is to make sure that the David Ndees and the Hassans, 20 years down the line or even earlier, don't have to go to those Muthaiga meetings that David Ndii we had to go through every Thursday, just to think about how we will not default on the Eurobond, and God gave us that favor. So one day we write that book, Your Excellency, and we'll have a small chapter there of the late nights. It stopped becoming a government issue, it became a whole sector issue, and we are happy we went through that. As it is right now, Your Excellency, the number of DFIs has gone up. I think we were talking about that report early in the morning. As it stands right now, we are hosting delegations of big capital. We know California teachers, big pension schemes, big sovereign funds, all the way from even Netherlands. All they're trying to do is just to get 1% into Kenya. Remember that demographic capital is what they're seeing. So 20 years down the line, I don't think any president will have to go through what you went through. You'll be having an economy which is running itself. And for the fund managers, please make sure your tickets are already in, because as you walk into the future, there's more money coming, chasing for the same resources. So we need to get ahead and protect our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Tom Gitogo.
I think for me, given the confidence that this gives and signals to the economic players, and given the work ethic of Kenyans, this gives us a sure chance of perhaps being the biggest economy on the continent.
Oh, wow. Short and succinct, and that gives you pressure, Bwana CS. Where are you taking us?
Thank you very much. First, let me make it clear that, in my opinion, President William Samoei Ruto will go down in history as the most reform-minded and transformative president that this country has ever had and probably will ever have. I say so because in this administration, we have seen privatization acts legislated in 2025. We have seen the Government-Owned Enterprises Act legislated and enacted, very transformative. And you know, when you want to transform a country or any system, you must disrupt it. So what we are seeing is actually disruption that is positive and progressive. We have just had National Infrastructure Fund enacted into law, and a fund that has attracted over 2.8 billion US dollars. If you study or you take a sample of all the funds that have been set up, the National Infrastructure Funds, probably ours has the highest startup or initial capital. I have discussed the Indian fund, the Indian model with them. They started with less amount than ours. So we are starting at a very strong position. Now we have the Sovereign Wealth Fund, another first for this administration. So I don't think I'm sycophantic if I say that President William Ruto will go down as the most transformative, the most reform-minded president, and thankfully I will be hanging on his coat for the period that I served in this office, also to be branded probably the most transformative cabinet secretary, depending on how long I sit here. But where we are taking this country, as a government, we are taking this country. You know, we have said it, and it sounds like a joke, but it's the reality, that we are taking this country to Canaan through Singapore. But now it appears even we will be rerouting through Norway before we navigate to Canaan. But again, because we want to reach Canaan quickly, we will make sure that we fast track the journey. That is why we are starting. National Infrastructure Fund is up, and the board will be announced soon. And again, now today we are enacting another fund, the Sovereign Health Fund, Wealth Fund, with very robust governance structures, with a board that will be competitively recruited, apart from those who are going to come from the government. So I see a future for this country. Finally, in this fund, the stabilization component is going to be very critical. Remember, just the other day, we have been complaining, and even today, that we need to lower the prices of petroleum products, the oil prices. And you hear people talk of reduce prices, reduce prices, reduce prices. For you to be able to manage that, the shocks, you must have a dedicated fund that would help you do that. And this is one of the routes. It is not about shouting in political rallies. You cannot go to a political rally and reduce the price of petrol, for example. It is not possible. But that is what you are made to believe, that the government can just stand somewhere and say the prices of diesel will come from 182 to 60 shillings. It cannot happen. It will only happen when we have deliberate and dedicated funds which would help us in approaching such initiative. Thank you very much.
So, Your Excellency, no pressure whatsoever from what I'm hearing. So if you'll join me, please, in a round of applause for our guests. I think they've been able to break down quite a complex set of ideas and also the practicalities of this fund in a way that I think we're starting to understand it. And we do hope, and the promises have been made, that this is going to be revolutionary for this country. Asanteni sana, and I want to hand over back to Gitonga.
Thank you very much. Why don't we put our hands together for the panel again? Thank you very much, Wallace, for your indulgence. And Your Excellency will now progress to a few comments that we will have. And as we clear the stage, kindly let's clear the stage. Thank you, Your Excellency. And thank you, Your Excellency. So we'll now progress to a few remarks. And Your Excellency, it has been said that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow, but today we realize that they're not really leaders of tomorrow, they're already leaders of today. And to start us off on our comments, we have two students. You've listened or heard them before, and I'm sure they're familiar to a number of us. And I'll invite Lynn Mogore, who is the president of Kenya High School, together with Rooney Gitonga, who is also the president of Bureiruri Boys Senior School in Meru. Why don't we give them a clap as they're coming? Rooney, also please come so that you'll make your quick comments as we now progress with the rest of the program. You may use this as we progress. Rooney, please come so that you'll stand next to her. Please go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have one question for us today. Do you want to be remembered? Do you? We all do. I have come to accept and realize that at the end of the day, everyone has one thing and one thing in mind. They want to leave a mark in their country, in their family, in their nation. And one thing about this is that there are two types of people who will emanate from this goal. They are dreamers. Dreamers are people who have big ideas, and eventually they work towards their big ideas. But one thing about a dreamer is they do it for themselves. But the second type of people, we have visionaries. Visionaries work towards achieving a big goal, but not just for themselves, but for other people. They think beyond themselves. Today we have just witnessed His Excellency signing a bill into an act. The bill itself is now an act, is the Sovereign Wealth Fund, pillared with three major funds: the Stabilization Fund, Strategic Infrastructure Fund, and the most important to me, the Future Generation Fund. I asked a question: do you want to be remembered? Your Excellency, allow me to answer this question for you. You will surely be remembered. Because you're not working towards achieving something just for the current nation, but for the future. And one thing that people don't remember is that in order to be remembered, you must stand the greatest test, which is the test of time. And one thing about time is it does not appreciate those who work for the fruits of today. The end of this fund has a principle that the wealth underneath our soil must outlive the resources themselves. To me, this is a call to action, not just for the government, but for us as the youth, to support the vision that this country has. I'd like to finish by saying, good things take time. This is a good thing, and it will take time, but it will be remembered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Okay, let me take this opportunity first to thank God for enabling me to be here. This is a dream come true, if I can say that. Me setting my foot on this great place, it is a dream come true. And I will quote the words of our president: I am a man on a mission. I don't have room to lose hope or any option to retreat. I'm not going back again on the village. I'm rising. Okay, on this great day occasion, first, I would like to thank the government of Kenya under the leadership of our president. It has greatly shown us that they are not just investing for the current world. They are not just investing for the current nation. They're investing for the future. And this validates that our leaders, these great leaders of our nation, are optimistic for young men like us. They are not just building for themselves, but they want to create a generation where Kenya, at 50 years to come, at 100 years to come, will still remain firm. And thank you very much, Mr. President, for setting that foundation. You have laid a foundation that shall remain for many years to come. This, the Sovereign Wealth Fund, is such a great achievement that shall remain in our country for many years to come. I want to share this. Again, a quote that said that leadership is a privilege. Not only a privilege, but a privilege rooted with responsibility. I have come at a moment, I just look at the government of Kenya, and at least I am relieved, because I know the people that we have installed our lives on are people who are capable of leading us to higher levels. In the lives of our president, a person who is greatly committed to transforming our nation, a person who is always optimistic about the future. We thank you very much. I have seen this thing worthy because it is considering us. We are the future of Kenya, the future of this great nation. And you have invested onto us. And Kenya is not going back again. Kenya, we are rising. The pride of Africa. That is our position. That is our milestone. I know challenges will come. But this great occasion of today has set a milestone that even those challenges, when they come, at least Kenya will be at a par. That we can affirm onto those challenges and we counteract them in our nation. Thank you very much, our government. That one is a great, great achievement that shall remain remembered in our lives. Also, before I finish, I want to acknowledge the presence of my father. Dr. James Mwangi is my father. I want to say this in front of the nation, that Equity Bank has made my life. And I have promised him several times that I'm not turning back. He gave me a scholarship and a wings to fly to join high school. And I promised him that the opportunity that he gave me, I was worth it. And I'm not returning back. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, may God bless all of you, and may God bless the Republic of Kenya. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for our students. You may take your seats. Your Excellency, I am also guided to give an opportunity to Mwangi Ngai. And Mwangi Ngai is from Rusinga School, but he also was a witness to the process of the making of this particular act, which is now, this bill that is now an act. And Mwangi, very briefly, kindly just give your comments. Very briefly, please.
Thank you, everyone. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Ruto, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, all protocols observed. My name is Mwangi Ngai, and I'll be brief. I wasn't notified. And mine is just to give some few sentiments. And I'll ride on where the Cabinet Secretary of Treasury had left on being transformative. And Your Excellency, with the commitment you have given to us as a country and your citizens, you will indeed go down as a most transformative president that we have as a country. And in the same regard, and so with the Cabinet Secretary, and also my father and my icon and my mentor, our Majority Leader, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. And why I say this, I had the privilege, I'm on a work experience opportunity in the Majority Leader's office in the National Assembly. And I've had the privilege to look at it and be at the front line to see it from the second reading to now today when you have assented it. And let me tell you, it's not an easy thing. And I've had fortune does favor the brave, and indeed it does favor the brave. Times came that, I think it was last week, where people are not agreeing, and I realized that people want to pinga, wanataka kupinga serikali wakiwa pale mbele in terms of when they're in plenary. But now when they go to committee, even the Majority Leader had to call for harmonization, which was well led by our MP for Molo. And let me tell you, indeed, finally, today the baby that has been taken through steps, through readings, through all those deliberations from the different stakeholders, the baby indeed today has come out to be very successful. And let me tell you, because I do have hope in this country, I'm very, very privileged to be here today. The Sovereign Wealth Fund indeed will cater for all of us, because indeed it is only the foolish people who use money for today and not save for tomorrow. But as my good brother has said here, that leadership indeed is a good opportunity to serve other people and not to take advantage of them. And indeed today we are all testament to that. And Mr. President, thank you so, so much. Because indeed, and why I'm speaking with so much conviction, is because sometimes I sit down in my bedroom and wonder, where is this country going to? But when you see the big stakeholders, I've had, we call someone here Mr. Moneybags, but the real money today was on stage, talking and very passionate about this country, then indeed I have hope. Because the generation and the future that we say is in the future, that generation is referring to us. And indeed, I am grateful. And with that with those short remarks, Your Excellency, thank you so much. And I'm grateful for this opportunity, and may the good Lord bless you. And every day we are praying for you so that we transform this country. And indeed, Rome was not built on one day, and it's a step at a time. And we will indeed transform this country to be the next best country in the world. So thank you so much, Your Excellency. I'm privileged. Mwanginga is my name.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. Your Excellency, your mentorship programs are clear, as we can see these leaders being mentored today for the future. Your Excellency, with your permission, allow me now to invite the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, Honorable John Badi, to come and make some few remarks before we progress with the rest of the program. Kindly, let's welcome him with a clap. Welcome, Bwana Waziri.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the Deputy President, Speaker of the National Assembly, and the other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. Your Excellency, I am glad to be standing here today during this significant milestone that transcends the operationalization of a piece of legislation or just being a key statistics to our body of laws. This is a clear demonstration on the government's commitment in setting our country's sustainable economic foundation and ensuring that we have a nation that stands on stability, that stands on fairness, and which is offering equal opportunities to its people. Your Excellency, our economic policies are not just about managing the present, but it also must focus on building the future, and our delivery guardrails built around fiscal discipline, sound planning, and broad participation. My appreciation, allow me, Your Excellency, goes to the leadership of the National Assembly, and more particularly the Finance and Planning Committee, who efficiently managed this process and delivered the final bill in a record time. At this point, Your Excellency, without any fear of equivocation, in my judgment, the 13th Parliament will go down in history as one of the most consequential from an economic reform perspective. In just 3 years, Your Excellency, the House has managed to deliver precedent-setting pieces of economic governance legislation. Just to mention but a few, the Privatization Act of 2025, the Government-Owned Enterprises Act of 2025, the National Infrastructure Act of Fund Act of 2026, and now the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act of 2026. The House has been critical in ensuring that NIF is fully operationalized by approving the sessional papers on government divestiture from Safaricom and KPC to provide the foundational capital as approved by the people of Kenya as presented in the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. Your Excellency, when I make reference towards actualization of the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, many people find me as a man at odds. And at times, they refer to me as the biblical Saul. But far from it. Beyond being a fast learner, Your Excellency, and which I have realized that fast learning and even reading is not very common. Actually, I realize that it's just with a minority, based on some of the instances that I saw in our August House during the recent debate on the finance bill. But that is on a light touch, with a light touch. Both the Kenya Kwanza manifesto and Azimio coalition manifesto, Your Excellency, had lots of resemblance. And I am proud that the late Right Honorable Raila Odinga, may his soul rest in eternal peace, saw it fit that coming together as a country was critical in the furtherance of much-needed economic reforms which have been overly delayed. And I had benefit, Your Excellency, of sharing with both of you on how you too wanted the economy of this country to be steered, including the setting up of the National Infrastructure Fund and even this Sovereign Wealth Fund. You too discussed into detail before we lost the late Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And I'm happy that the successor in the party, Dr. Oburu Oginga, has equally been a student of that kind of thinking and is helping you steer the two political formations in the same direction. So, Your Excellency, some of the proposals that are in the Sovereign Wealth Fund Bill 2025 are informed by lessons that we have learned and best practices from other countries that have experienced significant economic progress by putting in place economic measures that deliver economic stability or stabilization and optimization of intergenerational transfers. We studied successful models, just to give assurance to the public, from jurisdictions including Norway, Singapore, which I cannot even forget, Saudi Arabia, Botswana in Africa, Nigeria, Kuwait, Qatar, among others. So, Your Excellency, the fund will address three critical imperatives. I don't want to repeat those three imperatives. I think we have spoken about them here during the panel discussion. I just want to mention that from a governance perspective, very robust governance framework has been inbuilt into this act to ensure that its operations are fiscally prudent, subject to the Auditor General, Controller of Budget, Cabinet, and the National Assembly oversight, and guided by the National Treasury's financial assessment, thereby reinforcing transparency and accountability. To conclude, Your Excellency, I submit that this act is more about economic stabilization. It is more about strategic development and intergenerational equity. Again, I know we have many naysayers who have kept lecturing us on the need to have a sovereign wealth fund only when we have budget surpluses. Let me tell them, the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time to start is right now. Making today the critical window to take action. We must not have or drop excuses. We must build momentum instead of waiting for a perfect moment that may never come. For a practical example, look at the progress we are making on our savings. With the bold reforms ushered in by this government, the pension savings have almost doubled over the last 3 years. It is a clear demonstration of what bold, brave, and proactive leadership can deliver to its people. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It is now my humble duty to invite your, let me seek guidance. Yeah, I am guided appropriately, Your Excellency. Now it is my pleasure to take this opportunity to invite my party leader, Dr. Oburu Oginga, the party leader of Orange Democratic Movement Party, who will come make his remarks, and I will kindly ask him immediately you are done, Daktari, you will invite the Deputy President, who will then proceed to invite the President. Thank you very much. Could we clap for the party leader of ODM as he comes?
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic, and the Speaker of the National Assembly, and all protocols observed. Your Excellency, the idea of establishing a sovereign fund is a very, very progressive idea. I first learned about it when I went to Botswana, where all the wealth they generate from their mineral resources are put into a sovereign fund. And that sovereign fund is for the future generations. And Botswana is not a big country. It's not bigger than our country. I'm sure even in terms of mineral resources, they might not be richer than us if we do thorough investigations or prospecting. But Your Excellency, that fund is not just kept idle. That fund is invested in viable projects, not only in their country, but in neighboring countries, and even if the World Bank needs it, they give it to them, as long as their credit rating is good, and they don't need money from anywhere. They also use it for themselves to develop their own country. And what an idea. That instead of having a big heart, which makes you go to the big capitals, and instead of talking of trade and relationship based on sovereignty and on equality, you are going to beg. And the people you beg, and when they refuse, you get annoyed as if they are obliged to develop your country. They are not obliged to develop your country. The responsibility of developing your country is yours and yours alone. And therefore, Your Excellency, this idea is very transformative, just like the other ideas we have been toying around with, like this affordable housing. We have been in government. I was an assistant minister in finance. We tried to move, but private interests around who want to benefit from small infrastructure which does not move the country anywhere, always come in to put pressure on government not to move. And sometimes then there is too much democracy. There should be some little benevolent dictatorship so that some things can move. Mr. President, I don't want to say that you should be a dictator. I'm not saying that. But some of these things, like the social health fund, the SHA, I think people who are criticizing it don't know what, they don't go into details of what is happening. They don't know exactly what is happening. It's a very, very big transformation towards what we have been calling universal health care. We have tried, many governments have tried to introduce universal health care, and there is no other move which is nearer to the universal health care in this country than the SHA. We have covered now more than 30 million Kenyans have registered for SHA. And we have tried it before. We have tried to move on those directions, and we have not been able. We have not been able, Mr. President. And I think being bold and sometimes unpopular is not bad. It's good. Sometimes you introduce things which to some people appear unpopular, because being populist is really not helping the people. You must go down to the fundamentals and see whether you can move ahead, and people will realize very soon that some of these moves are very, very, very helpful to our country, and they are many, many steps ahead of what we have tried before. I'm an economist. I was working with the Ministry of Planning, and moving forward things were some of our vision. We tried. These civil servants, Your Excellency, they know a lot of things. Kenyans have developed a lot of theories, a lot of very good things, and they have been rotting in the cupboards and in the archives. And other countries come and pick them and go and use them for their own development. But I'm very happy, Your Excellency, that you are now trying to at least remove some of them from the shelves and pushing them forward so that our country can develop. And I thank you very much, everybody. I didn't know I was going to make a remark, but I thank you for the opportunity. Asante sana. Okay. It is now my honor to invite His Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Kithure Kindiki. Thank you. Karibu.
A round of applause for Mzee. Thank you very much. Mr. President, before I make a 2-minute remarks, let me invite the Speaker of the National Assembly just to say something, because I think today is a very consequential day for our country, and the Parliament of Kenya has been at the center of that consequence. Welcome, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. Your Excellency, the President, relied on all the protocols established. We say in Africa that he who stores food during harvest does not fear drought. And this is exactly what we are doing. The issue of sovereign wealth in our nation was a dream of our forefathers at independence. In the famous sessional paper number 10 of 1965 that we have been quoting in many different ways, the underlying message there was that the nation needed savings, and to save is for the future. When President Kibaki came into office, again, we prepared the economic recovery strategy for wealth creation with emphasis on savings. When the Jubilee administration came into office, again, the Sovereign Wealth Fund bill was proposed and attempted to be brought to Parliament. The emphasis, savings for the future. All these attempts did not get to fruition because I believe of the words in the scripture, Matthew 26:41, the spirit was willing, but the body was weak. Today, we have the spirit that is willing and the body is strong. And that's how we have come to where we are on the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act, emphasizing on savings, stabilization, and infrastructure. Your Excellency, the passage of this bill in the National Assembly is a milestone for the 13th Parliament. I'm proud that it has happened at the time when yours truly is the Speaker of the National Assembly of our country. It brought to the fore the quality of some of our members. At one point, it was debated until 9 p.m. in the night, and you could see the galaxy of professional cadre in the House. Economists, lawyers, accountants, educationists, environmental policy experts, engineers, and even those who don't belong to any of those but who understood what it means to have a sovereign wealth reservoir. And I could see this, Your Excellency, when it came to the Committee of the Whole House. Members brought in very deep amendments. There's one member who triggered me to take them to winnowing, who listed amendments to delete all the paragraphs of the bill. And I called him to my office and asked him, what is it you want? He said, I wanted to trigger members to think. And when I brought the team together under the leadership of the chairperson of the Finance Committee and the majority leader, the product they brought back, I dare say, was one of the finest pieces of legislation that this Parliament has passed. And you could clearly see that our members do their research, they do their homework, they do their reading. Some of the amendments were quoting and citing provisions from Norway, from Singapore, from Botswana, from Nigeria, from Denmark. I was very impressed. And I feel proud that at this time in our history, we are working together and working together to the future. Your Excellency, today as you ascend to this bill, it sets the stage for this country to realize the provisions of Article 120 of our Constitution, which provides that the burdens and benefits of use of resources and public borrowing shall be shared equitably between the present and future generations. We have been told here, including by our young people, that we must strive to be remembered. And the people who are remembered for all the wrong things, you will be remembered, Your Excellency, among many things, for transforming this country and standing up to demonstrate that unlike the words of Jesus, your body and your spirit are both willing and strong. And that is what our country is headed to. Allow me, as I finish, Your Excellency, also on behalf of my team from Parliament, I'm here with my majority leader, our clerk, and a few MPs. The reason we don't have many MPs here is because they're on recess, and elections are not too far away, so they are in their constituencies. But we can exercise some bragging rights as Parliament. Your Excellency, the 13th Parliament has passed milestone legislations to help this administration in transforming the country. To mention but a few, we've passed the Affordable Housing Act 2020. Enterprises 2025, the Judges Retirement Benefits Act 2026, which, Your Excellency, you remember the Chief Justice telling you that there was an attempt to change that act that was passed through colonial rule in 1948. And all attempts since independence failed until the 13th Parliament passed it. The Virtual Asset Service Providers Act, the Technopolis Act, the Climate Change Amendment Act, the Sugar Act. This particularly, Your Excellency, is a milestone. You remember when you came into office, all the sugar factories in the country, apart from a few private ones, had collapsed. And we are draining resources from the national treasury to pay farmers and workers in factories that were not working. Today, we can say with pride that the sugar farmer in Kenya is satisfied and happy because they harvest their cane on Monday, and by the following Monday, they have money in their accounts. Courtesy the reforms through the Sugar Act, the Social Protection Act, the Gambling Control Act, the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Amendment Act, the National Infrastructure Fund Act, the Special Economic Zones Act, the Successive Finance Acts, and today, the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act. We feel very proud that in the history of our country, when eventually the writers of our history write, they say there was a 13th Parliament that supported the administration to realize what had eluded administrations since independence. Congratulations, Your Excellency, and on behalf of Parliament, we are ready, available, and willing to walk the journey of reforming our country. It needs men and women of vision, men and women of courage, and above all, people who do not fear criticism because it will always be there, to focus on what we must do and we will do to change our country. God bless you.
Mr. President, let me join all those who have spoken before me to congratulate you for leading our country into this remarkable occasion when we are witnessing the coming into force of one of the most consequential legislations in the history of our country that honors the requirements of our Constitution to use the natural resources we have for the benefit of both the present and future generations. Your Excellency, I have listened to all those who have spoken, the captains of industry who had very, very useful inputs and perspectives as we look towards the implementation of this law. And as the person you have entrusted with supporting you as you deliver the mandate of leading our country, I have taken notes on all the inputs that have been suggested by private sector leaders and all the speakers who have spoken before me. including Speaker Wetangula, who spoke when I was standing there. I didn't have my notebook, but I have noted what he has said about what we need to do as we implement this law. And because I have done that job, and because also today is not my day, allow me to leave it there so that as we look forward towards the implementation of this law, we will support you as you lead us to transforming our country and doing the heavy lifting that we need to do so that the Kenya of tomorrow can be better than the Kenya of today. Once more, Mr. President, thank you very much for your leadership and vision. Welcome and speak to the nation.
Thank you very much. Please, let's take our seats. Asanteni sana. Your Excellencies, distinguished leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this, in my opinion, very consequential ceremony this morning. There are moments in the life of a nation when history is recorded not in years, but in months. In March this year, Kenya changed how it will finance its development to build the assets of the future through the National Infrastructure Fund that we brought into force. Today, Kenya changes again how it will preserve its wealth and its future. Today, we enshrine in law the institution that will ensure that the prosperity of those assets we create endures for generations, and that is the National Sovereign Wealth Fund. Let me state the principle plainly, because everything I say after this flows from it. If the National Infrastructure Fund builds the assets that grow our nation, the Sovereign Wealth Fund preserves and multiplies the wealth the assets create. I know there was a question asked to the panelists. I must congratulate all the panelists who spoke here for their candor in explaining to us from their perspective, from the private sector perspective, what they see in what we are doing as government. And the question was, we have the National Infrastructure Fund, now we have the Sovereign Wealth Fund. What is the difference and what is the connection? In my very simple understanding, the National Infrastructure Fund builds our present. You know very well that we have many projects, critical infrastructure that we are desirous of building as a nation. But on the other hand, we have limited resources on how to deliver on these very critical infrastructure projects. The National Infrastructure Fund creates the bridge between the infrastructure projects that we need for our growth and the resources that will unlock the capital for us to implement these projects. I will give you an example. We've just signed the contract for the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. It's going to be a 150 billion shilling project. We cannot build that project using our budget because it's heavy. So we will not borrow, and we will not add additional taxes. What's going to happen is that we're going to use 20 billion shillings of the money we raised under our National Infrastructure Fund to crowd in the balance of the money from the private sector. That is how innovation works in the transformation of a nation. That is why in our midst here, we have fund managers, we have different investors, we have banks who are looking at the opportunity, pension funds who are looking at the opportunity to invest in Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. That is what NIF is going to do. But Sovereign Wealth Fund will connect the investment we are making in Jomo Kenyatta to the future generations. Because apart from benefiting from resources that will come from our natural resources in oil and minerals, we will also be investing profits that come from investment in our very critical infrastructure like Jomo Kenyatta in the Sovereign Wealth Fund, so that Lynn here and Ronnie and the young ones that came to witness this signing can have a portion of the investments we are making today for their future. So this is the connection that we are making between the present and the future. These are not isolated milestones. They are successive chapters in the deliberate transformation of our republic. Over the past 3 years, the bottom-up economic transformation agenda has restored stability, rebuilt confidence, strengthened our economy, and laid the foundations for sustained inclusive growth. With those foundations in place, we now transform how Kenya finances development, mobilizing domestic savings and private capital to build the assets of the future. But financing development is only half the journey. Today we ask a different question. What do we do with the wealth, the assets we are building today, and the natural resources we are unlocking today? What are we doing about the future? Do we use it all in our lifetime? Or do we preserve part of it so that future generations inherit not just what we found, but the prosperity we created with what we found? Our Constitution answers that question long before we do. Article 201C provides that, and I quote, "The burdens and benefits of the use of resources and of public borrowing shall be shared equitably between present and future generations." End of quote. This is far more than a principle of public finance. It is a constitutional covenant between generations. Today, through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, we give practical effect to that constitutional promise in front of our children. Natural resources are different from taxation or ordinary economic production. They are finite by their nature. Once a barrel of oil is extracted, it can never be extracted again. Once a mineral deposit has been exhausted, it is gone forever. If one generation consumes all the proceeds from exhaustible resources, it leaves nothing but empty mines and depleted oil fields for those who come after. That is neither prudent economics nor responsible stewardship. Around the world, history offers powerful lessons. Kuwait began the journey in 1953. But perhaps the best known example is Norway, as has been stated here, which I had the privilege of visiting a few weeks ago. And I sat across the table with a minister who was present 30 years ago when they started their sovereign wealth fund. And I had a real eyeball-to-eyeball conversation because I knew that shortly I will be signing Kenya's sovereign wealth fund. And just imagine what has happened in one generation. Norway has done something phenomenal. In one generation, in 30 years, they have built the world's largest sovereign wealth fund. $2 trillion. $2.2 trillion. 280 trillion Kenya shillings. I mean, in just 30 years. So when I tell our good citizens that we can be a first world country in one generation, it is possible. If anybody had any doubt in their mind what is achievable with focus, courage, and determination, look at what Norway has done. Rather than consume all the wealth generated from its North Sea oil, Norway chose to invest for the future. Today, as I have said, its sovereign wealth fund is worth $2.2 trillion. It owns about 1.5% of all listed companies in the world, with investments in more than 7,200 companies across the globe, including Equity Bank, right here at home, 14% in James' own words. That is how transformation works. That is the power of disciplined investing and long-term thinking. Closer home, Botswana, again as has been said here, built the Pula Fund. Pula means rain. In a dry land like Botswana, setting up a reserve is not an indulgence. It is a survival strategy. Rwanda has done the same. Many other countries have done so. Today, Kenya proudly joins that community of nations that saves while they build. The lesson from each of these nations is unmistakable. Natural resources create opportunity. Institutions determine destiny. Without the right institutions, even great natural wealth can become a missed opportunity. Economists call this the resource curse. I dare say they give it the wrong name. The curse is not the resources. The curse is the failure in stewardship. Kenya has learned this lesson through experience. For many years, Kenya extracted titanium from the mineral sands of Kwale. It was one of the largest mining investments in our country's history. The minerals were extracted. Those deposits can never be mined again. What answer shall we give one day to our children when they ask us what happened to titanium? That is why this legislation that today becomes law in Kenya is consequential, so that never again will we mine or use resources without a trace for the future generations. Kenya is expected, and you have heard from Paul Ruto, to commence oil production from the Lokichar Basin in Turkana. For decades, that discovery has represented hope. Today, it also represents responsibility. The question before us is not simply whether Kenya will produce oil. The question is whether Kenya will manage the proceeds wisely. Every barrel extracted should become an asset that never runs dry. At the same time, we have completed the first comprehensive nationwide mineral survey in our country's history. That survey has confirmed what many suspected for years, that Kenya is endowed with significant deposits of strategic and industrial governance, transparency, and accountability at its very heart. The Sovereign Wealth Fund will belong not to my administration, but to the Republic of Kenya. It will be managed according to the law, our Constitution, and the enduring interests of the Kenyan people. The Act provides for independent professional management, strong parliamentary oversight, and transparent public reporting and robust auditing. Every shilling must be accounted for. Every decision must be guided by prudence. Every investment must be measured by the legacy it leaves for future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, history seldom remembers nations for resources they possessed. It remembers them for the choices they made with those resources. The nations that achieve lasting prosperity share one defining characteristic. They think beyond the present. They plan in decades, not election cycles. They build institutions that endure across administrations and across generations. Permit me to express my appreciation that today Kenya chooses History, as I said, seldom remembers nations for resources they possessed. It remembers them for the choices they made in the use of those resources. The nations that achieve lasting prosperity share one defining characteristic. They think beyond the present, they plan in decades, not in election cycles, and they build institutions that endure beyond administrations and across generations. Permit me to express my appreciation to the National Assembly and the Senate for the diligence, patriotism, and sense of national purpose with which they have passed this legislation. You have not merely passed laws, you have laid the legislative foundations of a transformation that will outlive every one of us. History will remember you not as the parliament that debated Kenya's future, but one that legislated it into being. These laws will strengthen our financial system, modernize our economy, and lay foundations upon which future generations will continue to build. Today, Kenya chooses that discipline. We choose to save, to invest, to preserve, to build, and above all, we choose to honor the constitutional covenant that binds one generation to the next. The question history will ask us is not what we inherited, but what we bequeathed the next generation. And I want to appreciate the leadership of the Speaker, the speakers of both houses, the people of Kenya who came with ideas, the private sector players who informed the public participation, and the bipartisan engagement in Parliament. It went beyond sides. The entire House came together to build consensus on what we do with our present as we focus and connect it to the future. I must say I appreciate Parliament's role in the last 3 years. The Speaker said here very ably what we have managed to achieve in the space around our economy and the transformation that we have undertaken from the housing fund through the social health insurance fund to the primary health fund to the emergency fund to all the other transformational legislation from government-owned enterprises, Privatization Act, National Infrastructure Fund, now Sovereign Wealth Fund, and all the other pieces of legislation that have been undertaken by Parliament. Every proposal we have taken to Parliament has been subjected to the people's views in public participation, to parliamentary debate, and strengthened in the process. And we can proudly say today, while 3 years ago we were staring at a default, while 3 years ago I sat in room 6 here with my very able team, to which I am very grateful to them. And we had dollar reserves of just 2.5 months of import cover, about $5.7 billion. Today, Tuga is sitting in our midst here, our governor. Our foreign exchange reserves is going now to maybe 7 months of import cover. I think just yesterday or the day before, we are almost tripling our foreign exchange reserves in Kenya. That is extraordinary. And I want to thank these great men and women who have assisted me in putting this together with a lot of courage and with a lot of focus. Numbers are beginning to show. Just yesterday or the day before, UNCTAD released their report, and Kenya has increased its foreign direct investment from $1.5 billion 3 years ago to $3.2 billion today. And we are moving. I have asked the Deputy President to chair the government committee that is going to work with private sector investors and players for what will be one of the largest investments in our country. The investment in the East African oil refinery, a 2.2 trillion shilling investment in our country. And we have already set a date for the groundbreaking, just for your information. So, we are taking steps in making sure that we take our country. When we say we are moving this country to a first world status, we want to match our commitment with our actions. May history record that we honor the trust placed in our generation, not by exhausting our nation's resources, but by preserving, growing, and expanding them. May future generations look upon this moment, and representatives of that future generation are here with us this morning, and say they did not consume our inheritance. They secured it. They did not merely govern for their time, they governed for us as well. God bless you all. God bless Kenya. and I wish you all the very best this moment. Asanteni sana. And to all our friends who have come here, I know there are many actors. My good friend Tadese from TDB Bank here, our good friends from IFC are here, from the World Bank are here, our good friends from ATD are here, all the good people from, I see the new chairman of the Nairobi Stock Exchange or Securities Exchange here, Mr. Mulwa, and the immediate former is here, and many other people who are here. I see many fund managers. I see many pension fund people here, many people from the banks. If there was a moment we are discussing real money, this is the moment. And we are discussing it with the right people. And I am very confident about the economic future of our country. I think the more we pull together, the more we understand what we are doing, listening to all the captains of our financial institutions here, from the pension funds all the way to the banks, it gives me a lot of confidence that we are now in sync, that the future of our nation is not just in the hands of government, it is in the hands of our society. That the private sector is as much part of the discussion about the governance of our country and the future of our country as it is the responsibility and business of every citizen of our republic. That our children, Lynn and Ronnie, representing them here, are also part of the conversation about our country and about our future. It's a very proud moment for me as we take these steps, consequential, historic steps of taking our country to the next level. I see people from the insurance industry and all the other players, and when I listen to what they are saying, deepening the financial markets. I have been to the Nairobi Securities Exchange 5 times, not because I have no work to do. I have been there intentionally to give confidence that we believe in the capital markets as a source, as an alternative source of capital for us to transform our country. I must commend the capital markets. They have helped us fund Talanta Raila Odinga Stadium. They are helping us fund Bomas of Kenya. The creative, and innovative structuring of opportunities for us to be able to undertake some of our very consequential infrastructure projects, from Rironi Mau Summit to all the other programs, has been a partnership between government and the private sector. And I want to commend the private sector for stepping forward, being as courageous as us. Because in the past, the private sector were very shy. Today, we have very bold people. And I want to commend you. I don't take your participation, your partnership for granted. It is making a difference in our country. And this is the kind of collaboration and partnership between private sector actors, banks, pension funds, capital markets, investors, coming together so that we can build a nation. Listen, often the public is stranded with big projects that require funding. And the private sector on the other side is always stranded with a lot of money, not knowing where to invest. I am happy that we are now building the ecosystem that enables private sector resources to fund public assets in a win-win outcome. That ecosystem is what is going to make a difference in our country. It is innovative. It builds on all our strengths, What the government can do best, let government do. What the private sector can do best, the private sector should. And that is why it was necessary for us to change the Privatization Act. It was also necessary for us to amend the law on public-private partnerships so that we can get more private sector actors into the public space. I am very happy that this morning we are here. It's a very proud moment for me, and that we are making the right steps, taking our country into the future. I want to give you my assurance that under my administration, we will work with all actors. We will work together in a way that brings the whole nation together. I must thank the political class. I want to commend the Honorable Buru Odinga, now the leader of ODM, for coming together under the broad-based arrangement. Today, John Mbadi is providing leadership that has never been witnessed. I can confirm to you, John, that when I write my book, you will have ample space on what you and me have discussed, and your team at the Treasury, of course, including all the other actors that have taken this to the future. I also must commend the Leader of Majority, who is here, and our members in Parliament, members of the Finance Committee, all the members. They've been, I remember on, I think it was Wednesday, last week, and I was out of the country. I had gone to attend the graduation of my daughter. And discussions in Parliament went up to midnight. Consultations outside the official space in Parliament. And I was with Lawrence there, and he was in consultation. They were on a call with Parliament. And finally, Parliament came together in a very bipartisan way and said we must move the country forward. I commend them. And thank you very much, Kimani, for your leadership, the chair of our Finance Committee for his leadership, and all the other actors. I don't take it for granted, because I know what it means. We have tried to do this as a country for many years. It has not happened, not because others did not try, not because they didn't want to do it, but it didn't come together. We are privileged that we have managed to bring it together. So thank you very much, and God bless you.
I will request that we all be upstanding as we come to the formal and official close of this particular ceremony with the national anthem. So wherever we are, kindly let us be upstanding for the anthem. With your permission, Your Excellency.